Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to be looking at the Combat Patrol box set. Specifically, we're looking at the Tau Empire 1. Going to speak about, in terms of the value of the box set itself, to see if you make a good saving on that. But we're also going to talk about the usability of the units themselves, to see if they are good in the battlefield, and how they sort of work in a Tau force. With that, let's have a look at the box set. First thing I like to do in these reviews is really discuss the purpose of a box set. Why buy a box set? So the main rule is you're buying this for a discount on price. Now the thing is though, depending on what you're buying and the units inside it, you may be better buying separately because you may not be buying additional stuff that you may never use. So if you're buying for gaming, have you made a test list, and does every model find a place in one or two or more of these lists? Are units useful or not? Though bear in mind rules will change, so you've got to think sometimes long-term investment in these, it can be, if it's good at the moment, it could suddenly change when a codex comes out, so always keep that in mind. If you're buying for hobby purposes, do you have interest in building and painting every model in the box set, or is there only one or two you're interested in, the rest maybe not? Something to bear in mind. But the big one is, does your current pile of shame have any other units in it that need work? That is essentially a big problem I've got. I've not had time to really paint recently, and it is building up. I've got a few things I do need to work on, so very, very important one if you are buying for hobby purposes. There's no harm in adding to stuff, or if it's one you want to prioritise, but always one to keep in mind, especially for storage space. And what we'll look at further is we're going to look at the value of the models, so we're going to have a look at the units separately to determine if the box set does have a discount and which units could be undesirable, so you might not want them but the box set still is worth it. And also the usefulness of each unit, so I'll do a short little review of each unit, just giving you a bit of my thoughts on them and how they play. I won't look at value based on hobby. I might give you my personal opinions on that one, but I feel that is really quite subjective. Some people will find really, really good use for some units in terms of their hobby, for dioramas, etc. Some will not. I do find that if you do have a general sort of hobby project and you see these as being useful, you probably already have a plan in mind. But again, as it's subjective, I'll really only give you my opinion. Now I'm going to break down some of the contents of the box, going to look at the costs, the points, and make comparisons behind them. So in terms of what you get in the box, you get an Ethereal, which is a cost of £20, and in terms of points at the moment, they are 50 points. Cadre Fireblade, so a second leader unit, which is going to cost £19, and in 10th edition that is 50 points. Ghostkeel Battlesuit, which is cost of £55, and in 10th edition points that's 170 points. Stealth Suits, which is cost of £22.50, and 10th edition points is 75 points. Then you have the option of a Striker Breachers team, which is cost of £35. In 10th edition points, they are looking at about 100 to 115 points. So the value as of August 2023 is £95 via Games Workshop for the Combat Patrol. Total individually, you're looking at £151.50. Total saving £56.50, giving you about a discount of 37.3% discount, if I'm right. Let me know if I'm a wee bit off on that one. Keep in mind there is also additional discounts you can get at other sites. There's plenty of discount ones to possibly choose out there depending where you are in the world. And points value, the total of this is about 445 points and 460 points depending on how you build the Strike and Breachers team. So the one thing I'd say is the points you receive in this box are below average. Usually I'm trying to, from what I've seen in this and going in 10th edition, 500 points is sort of the area you want to aim for. And I feel you'd require a lot of further purchases to bring the points up in this 12 force. The Ghostkeel alone is a huge amount of the value in this box, both in points, but in a lot in terms of cost. Almost the discount alone you'll find covers the Ghostkeel. On to discussing the units in the box set, we're going to start with the Ethereal, which is 50 points per model. So in terms of stats, very poor save and possibly a poorer leadership than I would have wanted. Essentially these guys are supposed to inspire the other Tau forces, and 6+ seems a little bit low. I would argue a 5+ minimum would have been quite good for these guys. In terms of weapons, I'm not even really going to discuss that at all. They don't add much. When it comes to abilities though, they do have 5 up Feel No Pain for the unit they lead, which would be fantastic on some units, it would be phenomenal, but he can only really join Breachers and Strike teams, which does not feel ideal. It works, but possibly not the unit that you really want to give a 5-up feel no pain to. And he also gains command point on a 4+ in the command phase, which in a standard game you're looking at, I think, about 2.5 command points. So I think if this was more scored on a 3+, it'd be more reliable, you'd get more command points. I think that would be a lot better, just a wee bit of a change. That tweak from a 50% chance to a 66% chance of getting command point would be really ideal. Overall thoughts at 50 points, possibly a little bit expensive, but mainly taken for the command point farm. I feel that's really, really good. Maybe stick them in the backfield to strike team to set an objective, put them in cover as well, and they'll be reasonably hard to shift. Your opponent would have to dedicate a wee bit of firepower to them. Overall, not a bad leader unit. There might possibly be better ones, I'd argue, but in terms of 50 points, that is not costing very much. Possibly should be 5 to 10 points less, or have a better leadership to keep a unit in the game a bit better would be ideal. We now have the second leader unit in the box set, and that's the Cadre Fireblade. Cadre? Sure. 50 points per model. In terms of stats, it's kind of standard for a Tau foot soldier with stats. The leadership is a bit lower than I'd like it to be. I would really like that to be possibly 6, while the Ethereal to be 5. That would have been ideal. In terms of ranged weapon, it's fine. It's 2 damage. There's no AP on it, which is quite sad. Now, abilities can help you there, but not really ideal, and it's only 1 shot in rapid fire, so not the best. In terms of abilities though, +1 attack for ranged weapons on the units he leads is very nice for units at high numbers, so if they have a lot of models out there, then you are going to get a better result with that +1 attack. And then -3 AP on critical wounds is okay. If I had dev wounds would have been better, but I suppose -3 AP is okay. Really is only for that 1 shot. He's no sniper with that kind of stats, but it does help, I suppose, in a way. Overall, I think a bit of an affordable leader for a breacher team, coming out of Devilfish and completely unload a bunch of close quarter shooting. Again, possibly a little bit expensive. He doesn't add much himself in terms of actual fire ability, though it is how he augments the units around him. He does come with drones, which can help as well, so that could justify the 50 points possibly, but maybe a little bit lower, looking at the 45 to 40 points. Again, you are just bringing them for kind of abilities and for the drones, I guess. On to some of the other units. We're looking at Stealth Battlesuits, the start of the stealth element of this box set, and they come at 25 points per model. In terms of stats, actually pretty good. They've got good movement at 8 inches, their toughness is better for a Tau, and save and 2 wounds make them a little bit more enduring than your standard Tau troop. And in terms of weapons, you've got the burst cannon, which has a nice amount of shots but no AP, which hurts, but you are kept putting out 4 shots per model. I am a little bit debating when it comes to taking the fusion, because you do need to get really close to get that to be more effective. Ultimately, I would kind of maybe stay back and just burst cannon my way through, but depends what you think on that one. In terms of abilities, infiltrate and stealth for deployment and survivability, always very good. And when they act as observer, the guided unit gains reroll 1s to wound versus the spotted unit. That's a fantastic debuff, just one that you activate, so it instantly makes some of your more hard hitting units a lot more devastating. Overall thoughts, great unit for actually 75 points in a 3-man squad. Move towards objectives early, just get on them, your opponent then needs to think about how to deal with them. And then good unit for observer, because you do want to have observer units, and they give a really good benefit. So I can imagine 2 or 3 of these, possibly lean towards 2, just to make sure your harder hitting units are going to be more efficient in terms of the rolls. And next, I'm probably going to speak about the main value of this box set, and that is the Ghostkeel Battlesuit, which comes at 170 points per model. So really good movement, 10 inches, you can move up the field quite well with that. And the endurance is quite good. Now, it's a low toughness compared to some other units, but it's still got a 2+ save and 12 wounds, which is fantastic. Really, to keep its survivability, it means with that toughness, a lot of things are going to have an easier time to wound it, but it has some other defensive abilities to sort of make up for that. In terms of weapons, I think a lot of people are more leaning towards the Cyclic Ion Raker because of the 36 inches. That will mean that a lot of its defensive abilities are more helpful, and that it's not bad. It will help deal with 2/3 wounded models, And but if you want to be risky, you can go with the meltas, but I just feel you're moving too close to your opponent if you do that there. In terms of abilities, we have Infiltrate, Stealth and Lone Operative, all of them making it so that you can choose how you move around the fields. With Stealth, with it Infiltrate, and then Stealth obviously a bit more survivability, but Lone Operative as well. Not only that, but it also has 2 Stealth drones, which can reduce damage down to 0, so if a big impact thing does get through, just ignore it. That is really, really good. So overall thoughts, yeah, I think these around the flanks are probably the key. You're looking at the objective markers that your opponent's not quite not quite going for. Maybe they're just giving up on their forward units getting them, but that means you can go in there and sit on them, and with Lone Operative, any of the backfield units your opponent's using to blast you off objectives will have a harder time targeting them, which is really good. And even if they do target them, you can reduce 2 of their damages down to 0. So I certainly can see a place for Ghostkeels, certainly possibly 1 or 2 of these. Just if you're really, really smart with how you want to use them, I feel they can add a lot to a force. Don't think of them as damage dealers necessarily. These are truly stealth units that are really going to hamper the opponent through the flanks. And we finally come to the first of 2 battle line units, and this will be the strike team. So you really have an option between the strike team and the breachers. So strike team is 10 points per model. In terms of stats, fairly standard for a Tau, though they do have 4 up save. I thought they were 5 up. But 4 up keeps them with a nice bit of survivability. Weapons, really a bit disappointed here. Now they do have range and they do have strength on their weapons, but no AP will really make them hurt being able to break through armour. I feel that's a little bit of a lost opportunity. I sort of favour the pulse rifle because although it is 30 inches to get 1 shot and then you get within 15 to get 2, the pulse carbine, I suppose 20 inches fire, a bit closer with 2 shots is okay. But really with these guys, if you are going to start getting close, then you are going to really get objectives, then you are maybe looking at breachers, which are a lot closer but a fair bit more dangerous. And then in terms of abilities, more reliable Overwatch is okay. I suppose that's using up command point. And if you have a Fireblade, if they are allowed to stack with that, then you might get more shots. But again, using command point on a unit with no AP, that really does struggle a wee bit. And if staying still, the Shazwi can use the turret, which is fine but not great. Overall, I think maybe a little bit expensive at 100 points. They need to have a good way for them to get the AP to break through enemy, armor saves. That would be really useful. I would probably say at the moment, from what we've got here, if you build them a strike team, then having them in the backfield with an Ethereal, and maybe protecting in cover, will help them survive quite a wee bit, and just keep an objective and harass your enemy. And lastly, we have the Breacher team, which is coming at 11.5 points per model. Again, fairly standard stat line. You are looking at the 4 up save, which does help. In terms of weapons though, a fair bit better, though you are giving up a lot for in terms of range. You are going into close range with those pulse blasters, but it does help a lot more. They are strength 6, they're AP -1 and 3+ to hit, along with the Fireblade for more shots and proper delivery system. And these guys can possibly hurt, but again, you are doing this up close and personal. In terms of abilities, a native full rerolls to wounds against enemies within range of an objective is a fantastic ability. Really just sort of, these units do want to maybe take objectives. The problem is you're going to have a hard time possibly getting in range of those objectives, then shooting them off and being on it yourself. If there was a way to maybe push you forward, that would always help. Just move forward after you destroy a unit, then that would really move these guys up a tier. And if staying still, the Shazwi can use the turret, which is fine. With this unit, I think it requires Delphish to get the unit where they need to be, just both in terms of protection and getting in range, which is very, very important. With correct buffs, I think this would be a key unit in just about any army, because you do need to think about the midfield, and Breachers do seem to be a way that can at least push on up there and help out your at least clear out your enemy. If they can get close enough, maybe contest an objective as well. So what is my overall thoughts when it comes to this box set? So I think this does have a good stealth element to it. You do have the Ghostkeel and the stealth suits, units that can really harass the enemy, and also having battle line units with 2 leaders. In terms of usage, when it comes to beginner and maybe adding to forces, as a beginner there is a great amount of variety, but I feel 2 leader units with only 1 unit that can join, and a unit that, if you take them as breachers, probably needs a transport as well. And then the other 2 units are also complex units. Stealth, you really need to think about how to use them well. I don't think maybe the stealth suits, but the Ghostkeel, you just got to be careful how you use it to maximise its full efficiency. So maybe not the most beginner-friendly force in this one, I would possibly say. And then adding to an existing force, you need the Ghostkeel to be the real value to this. If you're not looking for the Ghostkeel, and then you say, oh, maybe I've already got a Cadre Fireblade or Ethereal, then it may not be any use to you there. A second one is really hard to justify if you don't at least need the Ghostkeel. If you don't need that, then the rest of the force might work out, but if there's even a single, leader unit you don't need, then largely I'd say this is maybe not ideal. Overall thoughts, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10, which may be a little bit harsh. I like the idea of the stealth element, which is a huge advantage for a Tau force. However, I do feel immediately you need to buy other units. Again, this is quite low in points. I suppose with all the combat patrols, you do need to actually buy more units to really make your force more usable. But I feel it's just mainly to make these units usable. The breachers or strike team, if they're breachers, they're going to need a devilfish. And then you have a second leader unit there, which is going to need another unit to go along with them. Though I would also say along stealth suits, they're also not the most friendly for beginners. One thing I would mention is in terms of the 2 leaders, is keep in mind this is me looking at in 10th edition. In 9th edition that might have not been as much of a problem, just the way that leaders and HQs worked. Overall, I just feel a crisis suits are more friendly to beginners. You'll find them easier to use possibly than some of the stealth units. They're kind of drop in and fire them as you kind of see fit. And in existing forces, I feel people just add crisis suits quite often. It's one of those things that if there's crisis suit in there, you might just add more to your force or to dioramas, wherever your hobby requires, more than some of the stealth elements. I feel people are not wanting them as much, though I believe in competitive games at the moment the Ghostkeel is doing quite well. Now, I do recognise if I say the crisis suits should be a large replacement for that, then that looks really at the Start Collecting box set that came out in the past. But, it was a really good box set then. I just feel with this one, it's not the most beginner friendly. You can agree or disagree with me on that one. And in terms of adding forces, the Ghostkeel is the big value to this one. And when it comes to leaders, usually leaders is what I find is the part that lets down these box sets, because usually people only need one, they don't sometimes need multiple. You've got another 2 leaders here which you might not need multiple of anyway. And in all honesty, they may not be the best units I find at the moment, or at least not the most inspiring I find. So that is my thoughts when it comes to the Tau Empire Combat Patrol box set. Am I being overly negative? I just feel with this one that the Ghostkeel plays such a major way in it, and when it comes to leaders, 2 of them just doesn't feel quite right. It's just not ideal for me. I really think when it's Tau Force, crisis suits are one of the areas I'd love to see in it. Again, it's similar to the one before it, but I just feel they're really, really important for the force. They look excellent, and just when I think of Tau, I do think of either the strike teams, the breachers, and also crisis suits. That's my main thing when I take away from Tau. And it's just one of those tricky box sets where I think it will find quite good use. It's one of those ones that you can fit it in as long as you need the Ghostkeel. If you don't need the Ghostkeel, really think about this one twice. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Very intrigued to hear from Tau players. And we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.